space combat is a big part of this book as well. Why did you want to have the mechanics for space combat, and what was important to capture?
Yeah, I think that one of the huge North Stars about Neon Odyssey is that we want it to feel cinematic. And I think that when you think about space combat in the most iconic sci-fi and science fantasy properties and media, that the dogfighting and the space combat feels extremely cinematic. And we wanted to offer the variety of, you could all scramble into individual fighters like Rogue Squadron, or you could all get in your hero bus, your combat freighter like the Millennium Falcon, or travel together in a single ship like in Firefly. So we wanted to make sure that you could live all of that kind of fantasy. If you wanted to get behind the controls of a mech, like in Gundam, or your favorite mecha anime, that you're able to do that. And so we wanted to make sure that all of those fantasies could exist in a singular system. Then once again, it was still D&D. It's not like you're standing up and you're walking and playing and sitting down at a different game to play when you get into space combat. That was extremely important. We didn't want to make sure that you had to create a second character sheet in order to do that. So the way that we approached space combat was really to have the most accessible and fun, but still crunchy. And it's a little more crunchy in certain ways than traditional D&D combat, but also streamlined in a lot of ways to make it feel like you are living the cinematic dogfighting experience.
For example, we wanted facing to matter, right? So when an X-Wing is tailing a TIE fighter, the way that the ship is going is where the guns are pointing. And obviously in a hard sci-fi setting, that might not logically make sense. But, you know, George Lucas was inspired by the dogfighting of World War II. And so that being pulled into science fiction and science fantasy, you know, facing has to matter, and being able to tail someone and chase them, and being able to do the maneuvers like doing a barrel roll, being able to do loops and shoot missiles, and having all of that matter, being able to divert power to different arcs of your spaceship to increase shields, but then let's say you increase shields to your right side, then your left side is exposed to fire. So hitting all of those fantasies was really important.
You can be in a big cruiser and battling multiple ships. There are elements where you can be boarded and you can still be in this kind of like big starfight. Pike's out flying the Sparrow, taking down enemy pirates, but some of them got in, and Ko is on the ship and just like, you know, like hammering down pirates. Is so cool to me and hits that flavor so well. Absolutely, just some of the design work that we've been able to accomplish for this, I think is hard not to point at.
So our Starship combat uses a hex grid system where facing and position matters, so you have to kind of track turning and all of that. But our goal is to streamline as much of that as possible to where we can abstract a bunch of it into ability checks that you make to pilot the vehicle, and not have to, you know, you don't have to get out your protractor and check angles, and we're not going to deal with elevation and all of that. Like, this will all still be playable on your normal tabletop.
And regardless of what class you're playing.
Yes, absolutely, regardless of what class you're playing. Class will have a very minor impact on vehicle combat and starship combat. The majority of the impact it's going to have is what your proficiency bonus is, which you'll get to add to rolls using the starship. And vehicles are, in and of themselves, their own stat block that you'll then get to sort of inject your proficiency bonus into, using the vehicle's ability scores to do things.
That's fantastic. Yeah, people are going to be very excited to like dive into all of that.
We've gotten such good response out of it, and man,
so a lot of play testing.
Yeah, a lot of play. Like all of the crew have been running it in their Neon Odyssey focused game streams, and so we've used a lot of starship combat. We've done some mech combat, and mechs are interesting because some of them sort of straddle the line where you can do ground vehicle combat with them, and then they can take off and go into starship combat. So they can kind of get you a vehicle that can do both.
Beyond just like combat in space, we've got like racing mechanics.
We do, yeah.
We've got things for handling chases.
Yep.
All of that.
So yeah, D&D has its core chase system in the Dungeon Master's Guide. There's a couple of things about that never really hit the mark for me. And one of the most important things there is, so many times in chases, it really comes down to fastest character on board wins.
Yeah.
And that defeats the purpose and the tension of a chase to me. So we're offering you a system where your speed matters. Like, if you're the fastest person on your side and you're faster than all your opponents, you're going to be better at catching them. But it is not going to be a foregone conclusion of, well, I'm speed 50 and I can dash 3 times, so I chase over action 1. You know, Womp womp. We don't want that. So our chase system is going to utilize ability checks, and sort of you'll have to do that to advance distance, because the assumption is everybody's running at the same time if you're in the middle of a chase. It's not going to be the super turn-based I move, you move, I move, you move, and initiative wins everything, right? So this is going to be sort of opposed roll based, and who rolls better, who messes up when they hit a complication and gets knocked back and loses progress at just the wrong time, letting someone catch up, or the pursuers, you're desperately chasing the villain who's making their escape, and you get cut off by a careless driver on one of your city streets, and you spin out and they make it around a corner and you lose them.
I think that Richie and I were the perfect age to have our brain chemistry changed by pod racing from episode 1 of Star Wars, and F-Zero is one of my favorite video game franchises that unfortunately has been dormant for too many years. The concept of having races across the galaxy, I think, is a trope that I know I wanted to see, and I think a lot of players are going to want to see. So we wanted to make sure that we had that and additional systems that are part and parcel to these sci-fi properties, including gambling, including hacking, potentially sports, downtime, including even just being able to perhaps go to the mall to experience the maximalism and themed entertainment of the 90s, right? But in a sci-fi setting, making sure that you can make your vehicle your own. I think that's a classic fantasy of, you have Spike Spiegel, and he's got the swordfish too. And it's very much his, and there's modifications that were made. And we want each group of Outrunners and each character, if they choose to have an individual Starfighter or a transport that the group shares, to feel like it's their own and it feels unique compared to another campaigns or another groups. And we wanted to make sure that we were thinking about systems that GMs could pick and choose to add to their game if they wanted, to help represent and simulate those experiences. And once again, when it comes to racing, we wanted to very much still be, you are playing D&D 5.5e. Our lead designer, Dan Dillon, has just done a tremendous job taking all of these different things and basically finding, in my opinion, the perfect balance between the crunch and the usability that feels very satisfying, but doesn't feel overly burdensome.
And there is one system that you haven't mentioned, and I think it's probably the most requested feature and everybody's favorite feature from any kind of sci-fi related property, and it's not in D&D, woefully, and that's debt. Everybody loves debt,
yeah.
And we can't let you tell a proper sci-fi story, and certainly not a gritty kind of neon noir cyberpunk story without giant galactic-wide banks. We have some fun mechanics related to that, and if you don't pay back your debts, you're going to have consequences.
And so we are offering a very optimistic and escapist setting, except you still can't escape debt.
Yeah.
Even in Neon Odyssey, you still can't escape
There's
debt.
just no
Sorry,
way.
folks.
There's just
Sorry,
no way.
folks.